Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy New Year, and welcome back to No Timeouts, a football show coming at you for the first time in 2025 from the Score Studio. My name is Jonah Birenbaum. That is Dan Wilkins. That is Tyler MacKillop. That is Zak McDonald. Our pal Justin Boone is still on vacation. Must be nice, but don't worry, he'll be back next week. Gentlemen, I hope you all had a restful holiday season because we're about to turn things up to 11 with the playoffs right around the corner. First, though, we've got Week 18 to go through, and while all but 2 playoff spots have been clinched already, this week's slate of games is hardly inconsequential. Seeding is still very much unsettled, and especially in the NFC, where the number 1 spot, with its home field advantage and its first-round bye, will come down to Sunday's tilt between the 14-2 Vikings and the 14-2 Lions. It's going to be a banger of a game. Wilkie, I think that's as good a place as any to start this week's discussion. Which NFC North juggernaut is going to be the top seed in the NFC?
Man, I hate to bet against the Lions because they are such a good team when they're healthy, but injuries are really starting to catch up with them. The defense in particular is in rough shape. So, we were talking a lot earlier this season about how the defense had really emerged as this really nice complement to a high-powered offense. But over the last few weeks, they've fallen off a cliff. The last 5 games, they are dead last in total defensive EPA per play. And now you've got the Vikings offense rolling into town with the number 1 seed on the line. I don't know, man. I think the Lions offense has to be perfect to go shot for shot with the Vikings in this one. And while I wouldn't rule that out from the Lions offense, we know how good they are. I just don't think that any offense has what it takes to go against the Vikings defense at that level with no slip-ups all game long. So I've got the Vikings in this one. I think they roll in there. They steal the number 1 seed. They get home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. And while it could look a little bit different if they meet again in the playoffs, maybe the Lions get a couple of their key defensive players back, I don't think we're talking enough about how good this Vikings team is and how well-positioned they are to make an unlikely Super Bowl run.
Yeah, and on one hand, you could say the Lions' schedule over the last month has been very difficult. Buffalo, Green Bay. And on the other hand, these are the caliber of teams that are going to be playing in the playoffs. Like, I'm concerned about them not only on Sunday, but moving forwards, because they're not playing the Panthers in the divisional round or what have you. So, yeah, it's really concerning, averaging almost 33 points allowed per game over the last 4 weeks. And like you said, dead last in EPA per play defensively over the last 5 weeks. It's been really messy. I'm concerned about them not just on Sunday, but moving forward. T, where are you at with this?
Yeah, I think the Lions are a team that can lose to anybody in the NFC and beat anybody in the NFC, because the defense... I saw a quote from Alex Anzalone, who's thinking about coming back. He said he had a steel plate in his shoulder, I believe, and he felt a lot of disrespect from the fact that the people are kind of counting this defense out. Look, when you're healthy, this is still a very good unit, but it just can't be looked past as what this front seven, the position they're in. But again, I do still think that this is still a team capable of winning the Super Bowl, even where they're at, but they're also capable of, in a really stacked NFC, potentially, if they don't win on Sunday, not making it out of the wild card round.
Yeah,
you saw on that. I can't even remember which game it was. I'm sure you guys will remember what game it was. But when Dan Campbell went for the onside kick, late in the game, right?
Against Buffalo.
The Bills game. That tells you everything that Dan Campbell thinks about the Detroit Lions defense. Yep. It's gotten to a point where they're really hurt. The guys they just don't have the dudes. They had all these dudes. They were ready to go. They were very excited, and they're just not there anymore. And I do think, also losing David Montgomery is still underrated. I know Jahmyr Gibbs is very good, but if you're going to be a team that isn't going to be able to play good defense, you need that grinder of David Montgomery, because Gibbs hits the home runs, which are awesome, but they need to start chewing up some clock. Yep. They need to start controlling the ball. They can't have turnovers. They can't go for it on 4th down and miss. They can't not make onside kicks. They have to really tighten things up. And it's kind of starting to feel like one of those things where they're sort of the opposite of the Chiefs, where the Chiefs over the past 3 years of winning a Super Bowl, they kind of do this thing where they slump a little bit in the middle of the season and they ramp up going towards the playoffs, and you're seeing it happen now. And the Lions did kind of the opposite, where it's they were playing the Super Bowl every week in the middle of the season and trying to win 50-0, and now all of a sudden it's kind of catching up to them, and they might be in a tough spot.
Yeah, maybe they're lulling the rest of the NFC into a false sense of security, but I don't know. Giving up 34 points to this 49ers team is not exactly a promising sign for a team that a month ago looked like, if not the Super Bowl favorite, then certainly a Super Bowl favorite. So it goes without saying that there's plenty on the line this week in that game. There's incentive for both teams to win, but You're a proponent of the theory that once your team has clinched, you maybe shouldn't be starting your starters in Week 18, irrespective of seeding implications, or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, I think that there's certain situations, like you look at the Chargers this week, they're very, very lucky in that they get to watch the Bengals and Steelers play on Saturday and then make a decision as to what they do. Because obviously if the Steelers were to lose, they would be playing to grab that 5th spot. And ultimately, you'd like to be playing the Texans instead of the Ravens.
Yeah.
I think that's a time when it's worthy of playing. But I really like what Sean McVay is deciding to do this week, and he's done this in the past. And that seeding is still on the line, but he's still deciding to sit his starters. Like Matt Stafford's not going to be playing this week. They're going with Jimmy Garoppolo. He hasn't said exactly what they're going to do with everybody else, but I would expect you're going to see guys like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua sitting in this game. I think it's smart because you look at the NFC. Do you really have a preference too much between the Commanders or the Packers? Some would say, yes, I'd rather play the Commanders than the Packers, but these are the Commanders are playing better football than the Packers are right now. So I like being conservative, not taking the risk. I had a lot of problems, and once I heard it from Dan Campbell, I started to understand a little bit more what he said post-game, not pre-game. I really thought the Lions shouldn't have been playing their starters against San Francisco, being that it meant absolutely nothing to them. But when I did hear from Campbell post-game, he kind of said, we didn't want to put, and you hear this a lot in that players, especially the players that are playing on teams that are out of the postseason hunt, they're still playing for their jobs. Mm-hmm. They're playing for that next contract. And he put it in that, hey, we could have sat everybody. I really thought about it. It was tough to sleep at night thinking about making the decision to sit some starters. But he said we didn't want to put some of these guys in a bad position in that they were playing Monday night and they didn't find out till Sunday that that game didn't mean anything. But I really think if you're the Bills, you're the Eagles, I'm seeing it looks like they're making the right decision to be sitting these guys. I just don't see the upside. And listen, I'm the guy that knows this. I watched Brandon Staley put Mike Williams on the field in a meaningless Week 18 game. He gets hurt. They lose to the Jaguars in embarrassing fashion in the first round of the postseason. It's just never worth it to me because the embarrassment of it actually happening where you have a consequential injury is just one it just becomes hard to fathom. Like the hindsight in 2020, I just don't get why any team would want to play starters in inconsequential games.
Yeah, I'm glad you at least qualified it by saying the Chargers are in a unique situation because I think their seeding does matter. Like you do not want to go play the Ravens when you have a chance to go play the Texans instead. But I think this also raises an interesting question. Are we all cool with what the Eagles did and not letting Saquon go for the record?
Absolutely.
I'm not cool with that whatsoever. I am not cool with that. There's like, on some level, it's like, there's two things. First of all, I think that you got to be a really good team to sit your players and have them come back firing on all cylinders the next week. I think by the time you get to week 18, the risk of somebody tearing an ACL and stuff like that, that's really hard to get over. But not playing and then playing, I think it's a really hard thing to do. And Saquon Barkley, what are we doing? This football is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be having a good time. We're supposed to be, trying to galvanize these guys together and have them fight for something bigger than themselves. And it's like, this is the perfect time to do it. If you're the Eagles, certainly you can win a Super Bowl, but I don't think there's some infallible team that like the Patriots in the 2000s that's ready to just take a week off and chill and hang out. I say keep going for the throat the entire way, all the way throughout the whole season. Go for the record, try and be a bully, establish that mentality, and go all the way through. And maybe that's an old school way, but
I completely disagree because they haven't had a bye since week 5. Like this is a team that's played a lot of football. Like they're the favorites in the NFC.
Do you remember all those Colts teams in the 2000s? They used to do this every single year. They used to bench their players, the Peyton Manning teams, and then they would get like dusted. They lost like 45-0 to the Jets one year in like the wild card round because their guys are just not they're just not in the right headspace by the time they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, the rust versus rest conversation is, there's never an answer to it, but I will say I think the decision to rest Saquon reflects Nick Sirianni's really strong understanding of Saquon's personality, and I think that if he knew that Saquon would bristle at this, he would send him out there, he'd give him a chance, but if you remember earlier in the season when Saquon had an opportunity to set his single game high water mark in rushing yards, Saquon was like, nah, man, like we've already won this game, let the kids eat, give them an opportunity, and I think that this speaks to how well Nick Sirianni understands his star running back and how well, their rapport is that he can go up to him and be like, hey, man, we're going to sit you, and I hope you're cool with that. And I think he understands that he would be responsive to that.
Yeah, I do understand the move, and obviously the goal is a Super Bowl here, but I just wish they let him go for it, at least for like a quarter, right? Because like
against the
Was
Giants.
it really going to take that long against the
doesn't.
Giants? Was it like it was going to take like 5 plays? Come on.
Potentially.
It just takes one play, though. It takes one play to lose
Exactly.
Saquon Barkley for the
I know.
playoffs.
I feel like, Jalen Hurts probably wasn't going to play this week anyway, so ultimately you weren't going to be playing all your starters, but you were going to have to run out your full starting offensive line because you weren't going to put him behind the backup offensive line. So that's a factor too. I don't know. I just feel like, and this is probably just narrative stuff that doesn't actually mean anything, and we'll get into the whole momentum conversation, but I feel like going into this game and like finishing the regular season with the record against Saquon's old team, like that would have been such a cool thing to go in the playoffs riding that high. I get it. I understand sitting the starters and you have a bigger goal, but I just think it would have been so cool, and I wish they gave him a chance.
Last bye in week 5.
Yes.
That's a lot of football you're playing.
I think Tyler's right, but I just don't like it.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
fair.
Like,
That's
I
fair.
just
That's
don't
where
like
I'm
it.
at,
It's just not a take I enjoy.
Yeah.
Well put. Gentlemen, let's move on because of all the teams on the playoff bubble, none have come on as strong in the last few weeks as the Cincinnati Bengals. They've won 4 games in a row, including a massive overtime win over the Broncos last week, to get back to 500 and give themselves a chance at least to cap their uneven season with a playoff berth. Zach, of the teams in the hunt, so we got the Broncos, we got the Dolphins, we got the Bengals, we got the Falcons, and we got the Bucks. Is it fair to say that you most want to see the Bengals make the playoffs?
It's more than fair to say that. It would be a crime to football if the Miami Dolphins or the Denver Broncos make the playoffs over the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't even know if the Bengals are a Super Bowl team, but they're a berserker that needs to happen on a random Saturday night game against whoever they play. And it's like, I always see this, like, I see this online, like, especially after, like, Chiefs games, there's always, like, that big thing where people are like, oh, like, the refs rigged it, or, like, the NFL called this one in, or whatever. And it's like, I don't believe in that. I think refs are regular dudes who just make mistakes or whatever.
They're just bad.
They're just bad. Yeah, I think they're just bad. But if that is a real thing, the NFL needs to call it in this weekend. Whatever they can do, rig the game, get the refs calling every call they can make. We need Joe Burrow in the playoffs. It's just, if there is a football god, this is what will happen.
Well, listen, you're going to be counting on Carson Wentz to beat the Broncos. So
You're telling me Carson Wentz can't get hot?
look, I'm not ruling
Don't let
it
him
out.
get hot. It's like they famously say, don't let Carson Wentz get hot.
They do say that.
Yeah.
They do. I'm not ruling it out. It would be insane. It would be, and also I don't think that the Chiefs want to win this game. Not that they would ever say that, but they would much rather have the Broncos in the playoffs than the Bengals, who would probably, if they were to win the wild card round, would go to Kansas City.
But doesn't the seeding work in a way that the Bengals will have to beat the Bills in order to advance to eventually play Kansas City?
Yes.
So maybe Kansas City saying, hey, we'd rather play the Bengals, and Joe Burrow gets hot on one game agast the Bills in the
That's fair.
Chestnut checkers. Chestnut checkers.
Than the Bills, And also Andy Reid and having Carson Wentz in a Week 18 game, that is an Andy Reid fever dream. He is absolutely cooking everything he can up right now.
Yeah.
He wants that pelt on his wall. The Chiefs can absolutely win this game.
Carson Wentz has attempted 2 passes all season long, so he's going to be hungry. But look, I don't think that the Bengals can win a Super Bowl with their defense, but man, could they ever be a thorn in the side of the Bills or whoever they end up playing. They're so much fun, and Joe Burrow is playing at by far the highest level of his career. It'd be so dope to see him and Jamar Chase go off in the playoffs and make life miserable for one of like the top contenders in the AFC.
See, maybe I'm like just chronically online far too much, and that I hear the discourse of like the Bengals. We need the Bengals in the playoffs. All these other AFC teams stink. Jonah, how many games did the Cincinnati Bengals lose this year?
8.
I looked it up. I went through all the games they had this year, and I saw how many games did they lose where Joe Burrow had the ball in the last possession of the game? Oh, half of those losses.
Really?
Half of those losses. New England Patriots, 3 minutes to go. Week 1 of the season. 3 and out. Ravens, the first time they played the Ravens, 1:35 left in the game, tied at 38, 3 and out. Overtime.
And that was when the Ravens' defense was awful.
Right.
Yeah.
Overtime.
Fair.
Defense gets a stop. They get the ball back. They actually get the ball back at the Baltimore 43. 3 and out on a kick. Sorry, not a 3 and out. A 54-yard kick from McPherson. Missed. That's 2 opportunities in the same game to win. The Ravens, again, go for 2. Failed two-point conversion, obviously, at the end of regulation. And then the Chargers. Are we forgetting that this team had a chance to play one of those teams that just recently clinched a playoff berth? 27-27. He had the ball with 1:30 to go. 3 and out. 4 opportunities for Joe Burrow to win it. I know the defense has been terrible,
Man came
and I
with
know
receipts.
Joe Burrow is playing at a level that is worthy of MVP, of an MVP season in most years. But this team has had a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
And this is not a Super Bowl contender. I don't care what you say about Joe Burrow and the performance of this offense. This defense has no chance of beating the Bills, has no chance of beating the Chiefs.
Yep.
And it's not Burrowhead anymore. The Chiefs have won 3 straight games against the Bengals since that loss that they had. Cincinnati, you should have just won the games in front of you.
Yeah.
100%
You shouldn't
agreed.
be getting this help.
They have no one to blame but themselves. But the larger point is no one wants to see the Broncos or the Dolphins in the playoffs, other than Broncos and Dolphins
If I have to
fans.
watch the Miami Dolphins in the playoffs, I will rage. I do not need to see Tyler Huntley start an NFL playoff game.
Nobody
Pro
does.
Bowler,
Dolphins-
Tyler
Pro Bowler
Huntley.
Tyler Huntley.
The Dolphins are dead. I would definitely not want to see that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the Steelers as well. They lost to the Steelers. They get the Steelers again. Like, don't be telling me if Cincinnati loses this game on Saturday that, we should have the Bengals in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
yeah.
This is not the college football playoff. It's not an invitational. This isn't March Madness. It's not an invitational. Win the games in front of you, and Cincinnati didn't do it all season.
Yeah, don't lose to the Patriots in week 1, and maybe your whole season is different.
Yeah.
Fair.
Gentlemen, with the playoffs rapidly approaching, it's time we take some accountability for the mistakes we made over the course of the regular season. Look, we're not shy about taking victory laps when we have good, prescient takes. We need to own up. It's only right that we own up to the calls that we made that just didn't hit this season. Wilkins, what's something you were wrong about this season?
I was definitely wrong about this. I think lots of people were wrong about this. We were all drinking the Kool-Aid about the situation that Caleb Williams was stepping into with the Bears. I mean, Tyler, I believe you and I were just a few of many on this show who declared this as the best situation that any number 1 overall pick has ever stepped into. As it turns out, you need a little more than just a few recognizable receivers to set a young quarterback up for success. The coaching staff, both before and after the in-season changes, has been horrific. Just completely dropping the ball across the board. The offensive line has been just as bad. Maybe some better coaching would have helped in that department, but also this was a personnel failure from the top of the organization. And the personnel failures don't stop there. I mean, you when they were heading into this offseason, primed to set up their number 1 overall pick for success, the first move any team did in the offseason was them rushing out to sign DeAndre Swift to a 3-year, $24 million contract in free agency. I don't know who they thought they were beating to the punch there, but it was probably no one. And then I know a lot of us were excited about them being able to pair Rome Odunze with Caleb Williams in the draft. He's been a bit of a disappointment so far. And look, as things have gone so far, you would probably say that it would have been smarter to spend that pick on one of the offensive linemen available in that spot, maybe Olu Fashanu. Look, I think all of this is to say that I don't understand why we aren't talking more about the job that Ryan Poles has done as the GM there. Of course, he's going to continue to get credit for the trade he made moving down in last year's draft, which got them the number 1 pick in this year's draft to get Caleb Williams. Of course, that has worked out well. That has been a good move, but what else does he have on his resume other than like trading the top pick in the 2nd round for Chase Claypool a couple of years ago? Like, I don't really understand. I think this has been a largely bad job of building a team. He also hired Matt Eberflus, so I don't really know what we're holding on to here. The Bears have to get this going in the right direction soon if they're going to make good on Caleb Williams' potential. I still believe in him. I think that his presence alone makes this job very attractive to any head coaching candidate. I think it's the most attractive of any job for that reason. Mm-hmm. But if it's still the same people making the decisions at the top of the organization, I don't really know how much confidence we can have in them getting this thing back on track. So if I'm ownership, I'd be looking for a lot more than a new head coach this offseason.
That's so fair, and you're not wrong in that you were wrong about the Bears being an ideal situation for a rookie QB. But is it also fair to say that Caleb Williams' performance also left much to be desired?
It did. Yeah, I just think that this is also another one of those situations where, you take a bad situation and it just kind of snowballs for a young quarterback and it doesn't help them. Like, of course, you would love a quarterback to come in and elevate his surroundings immediately, but that's a lot to ask of a young quarterback. We've even seen it with C.J. Stroud this year. His offensive line and the protection unit has taken a huge step back, and his play looks like it's completely fallen off a cliff. Yep. I know that's been the narrative. I don't totally buy that. I still think he's the same player that we saw last year. But, when you're getting pressured on over 50% of your dropbacks or whatever, you're going to kind of start seeing ghosts out there. You're going to start looking like a different player. So to me, Caleb is still going to be the guy that I thought he was coming into the league, provided they get him the proper supporting cast. But Yeah, I just think most of it comes down to the terrible organization that they are, and I'm not convinced that just replacing the head coach is going to solve that, no matter who they go out and get.
That's fair. T, what's something you were wrong about this season?
It sucks to say because I think I only said this a few weeks ago, but the NFC is just very clearly has more contenders than the AFC. And I'm not so sure that I'm completely sold on some of these teams, but when I look at Tampa Bay, when I look at Los Angeles, I actually do think those are teams that could generate significant noise in the postseason. And then I look at the way Washington's played. I was really surprised. I know, we had Jalen Hurts go down, but I was shocked to see the Commanders put up that number of points against the Eagles defense that had been playing at such a high level. You have the Lions coming back down to earth. The Packers are trending very much so in the wrong direction, but still a well-coached team, still a team that has a solid defense and a great run game. I can see them making some noise. And then I look at the AFC. I know we just talked about the Burrow situation, but you look at Los Angeles, you look at Pittsburgh, you look at Denver, whoever's grabbing that last spot, the Texans as well. These teams have just absolutely no chance of taking those top three dogs out. So there are more Super Bowl contenders in the NFC than there are in the AFC. And at first, I just thought the Lions and the Eagles were the only teams I really believed in. I think there's a few more that genuinely could make noise and potentially be playing in an NFC Championship game.
I'm sorry, did you include the Bucs in that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think they need to be a little bit healthier and better defensively. I don't trust them too much defensively against some of these top teams. Mm-hmm. But offensively, I mean, this is the best. Is this the best offensive line in the NFL this year? Are the Bucs? Like they're running the ball really well.
Yep.
Baker's. I talked about Baker and how much I liked this season. I mean, he's not playing at a super high level, but
he's getting the job done, man.
Yeah.
They're top five.
He's
in the
more.
NFL
He's more than getting the job done.
Absolutely.
Baker Mayfield is one of those quarterbacks where like it looks so ugly the way that he plays. Like he doesn't have the footwork that you want. He doesn't have like all these things. But he just like then you're just like he's thrown like whatever 38, 39 touchdowns this year, and it's just like maybe he's just really good,
Yeah. And
I will say this though. I have a question for Tyler. Okay. Would you rather have the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens, or the field?
Yeah, I would rather have the Chiefs, Bills, and the Ravens. Even though I don't.
So that's the only thing that I think about, like the AFC, NFC, like Super Bowl competitor things. It's just like those three teams feel so far ahead of the pack than even the rest of the teams. You're definitely right. At the bottom half of the AFC playoffs is like really poor, and there's a lot of like. I do kind of like the Packers. I do kind of like the Bucs. The Rams are interesting, but I just can't see either three of those teams beating whoever wins the gauntlet of those three teams.
Yeah, the NFC have the quantity maybe, but the Super Bowl winner is coming from the AFC.
I'd still throw if I was going to power rank them, I'd probably still put the Chiefs 1. I'd probably put the Eagles 2.
Over the Bills?
Hurts healthy,
really?
Yeah. I'm still not completely sold on their defense. This just kind of fits the case every single postseason. Then the Ravens, I really like because the offense is maybe the best in the NFL.
When we did a Would You Rather earlier in the season between, I think, Jaden Daniels and the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, you called Lamar a playoff choker. So I know that our man is going to be
He has been.
absolutely
He has been.
I have that feeling.
chomping at the bit to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Zachy, what's something you were wrong about this season, man?
All right. I was, forgive me for this. This is just going to take I got something I have to get off my chest about this, okay? I was wrong about Sam Darnold this season. I didn't think that Sam Darnold was good. But more than I didn't think that Sam Darnold was good, I kind of couldn't handle him being good.
That is a great way to put it.
I'll tell you, so I love football. Football is my life. I've been playing fantasy football since, I think, 2007. I've been in 3 or 4 leagues every single year. I've never won a single championship. My favorite college football team is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who had a great game last night.
You and my dad should hang out.
I would love to hang out with your dad. They haven't won a single national championship since I've been born, despite the fact that they're supposed to be one of the top programs in the nation. My Canadian football team, I love the Canadian Football League. and I cheer for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, a team that hasn't won a Grey Cup since 1999. There are 9 teams in the league, and they haven't won since 1999. That is almost statistically impossible. And then to top it all off, in the 1980s, Mark Gastineau did a stupid sack dance, and my father was so enamored by it that he became a New York Jets football fan, and he passed it down to me like a hereditary disease. And since then, I've had the most wretched football fan experience in the entire world.
Whoa, hold on.
Listen to this. It's
The
been
Raiders
Adam
fan has
Gase.
entered the chat.
It's been Adam Gase. It's been Tim Tebow. It has been butt fumbles and mononucleosis and seeing ghosts and 3 stories that I can't even mention on this podcast because they're so audacious between Brett Favre, Rex Ryan, and Zach Wilson. It is the worst period experience in all of football. Not to mention we have Aaron Rodgers, we have Woody Johnson, historic Nepo baby, who's not even really running the franchise. It's actually his grandson, Brick Johnson. How is that your name? Brick Johnson is running the team based off of what he does in Madden, and they are absolutely desolate. And you know what? The one hope that you have when you cheer for a poor team like this is maybe we'll find the guy. Maybe we'll find the quarterback that will come and save and turn this whole thing around. And guess what? I think the Jets did find the guy, and his name was Sam Darnold, and they couldn't support him in the way that he needed to be supported, and now he's going to show exactly how good he was. So that last little bit, that last little shred of hope that I had that Sam Darnold sucked this whole time was taken away from me and ripped away because he is really good. And by the way, I'm happy for Sam Darnold because he did what I can't do. He got out of the Jets. He got out of this hostage situation, which is what the Jets are, a hostage situation. Ask Garrett Wilson, ask Sauce Gardner. And he got out and he was successful, and I'm extremely proud of him. And I'm sorry for going on that rant, but it just needed to be said. I was dead wrong about Sam Darnold, and thank God I was.
I hate to twist the knife, but you could take solace in the fact that Sam Darnold would not play at this level on the Jets.
No, he wouldn't. Nobody would play on any good level
so
with the
it's okay.
Jets.
Like even if you kept him, like it still would have been over.
No, the Jets are a crooked franchise, and that's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, it's possible that a reunion could be in the cards, but that'll take us to our next
God.
segment. That'll take us to our next segment. We're going to do a little game of fact or fiction, gentlemen, and we'll start right here. Fact or fiction, Sam Darnold will get a bigger contract in free agency than Kirk Cousins got.
Fact.
Will it be from the Jets?
No, I think it'll be with
That
the
would be
Vikings.
awesome.
You do.
Yeah.
They're bringing him back.
I think honestly I don't know how. I think that they're going to go to the NFC Championship at least at this point, and I don't know how you go that far and just let them go like this.
The Vikings are so good.
Yeah.
I think I will say fiction because for that reason, I think he goes back to Minnesota, but I don't think that the Vikings can somehow justify spending that amount of money when they just drafted a quarterback in the top 10. So I think there's a potential of a Darnold discount to stick with O'Connell.
Yeah, I think fiction as well. I think they're going to tag him. I think they're going to tag him. They'll put him on 1 year, and
That would be smart too.
They'll just run it back 1 year with Sam Darnold and see what happens and do kind of a Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees situation with the Chargers back in the day.
Okay. Fact or fiction, a QB desperate team should offer a top 10 pick for J.J. McCarthy. T, we'll let you answer first.
I mean, in this draft class, we had some. I would say, yeah. I mean, you look at the class right now. I have my doubts about Cam Ward. I think Shadur will be a great NFL quarterback, but he's going to be like a number 1 pick. So, where we currently stand, I think that would be a worthwhile endeavor for some of these QB needy teams.
Zach, what do you say?
I think fact as well. I'm just a big J.J. McCarthy fan. And I also think one of the best predictors of quarterback success for rookies is not only the coaching that they receive, but the coaches they get picked by. Like, you know, Patrick Mahomes, a lot of people didn't believe by him, but he was picked by Andy Reid. And Andy Reid knows how to identify quarterbacks, and I think that's a big reason why he was so successful. So the fact that J.J. McCarthy was picked by Kevin O'Connell, who by all intents and purposes seems like an absolute genius, I think that's a really good sign for how good of a player he is.
What do you say, Wilkie?
Yeah, I agree. I think that someone should be coming in. I don't know that they would trade him even if they sign or tag Darnold, but I think that someone should be coming in hot if you're a team that's like outside of the range to get Shadur. If you're in like the 5 to 10 range, you need a quarterback. Like the Raiders, you should be coming in offering your first and maybe even more than that. Wow.
This is the case of, we talked about this the other week, of being all in, unlike the Falcons, where if you believe in Sam Darnold, then let's use J.J. McCarthy to build the rest of the roster out.
Yeah.
Zachy, fact or fiction, Sunday will be Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL.
I hope it's Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL. I'll tell you that. No, I think that is fiction. I think that he will play again. I think that he'll make the most long and dramatic and annoying and arduous process that's ever existed in the history of like coming back. And I think that because of my experience with the Jets, he will go to another team like the Titans or something, and he'll just be absolutely fantastic. He will light it up and take that team to an AFC championship.
Wilkie, fact or fiction?
I am going to say fiction. I don't think he would want to go out like this. Who would want to go out ending their career with the Jets in the way that he has? I think that the way that he played over the second half kind of hints at the fact he still has something left in the tank. It's not everything, but he was playing decently down the stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if he were to sign with the Steelers relatively cheap.
Oh, my God.
If there's anyone who has suppressed drama before, it is Mike Tomlin. I think he'd
True.
be.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
the
he'd be
king.
an upgrade on Russ, and he would probably bring Devontae Adams with him. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't
if
know.
that happened, maybe I can
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
I think this is fact. Your legacy is just starting to spin round and round in the toilet. Like, call it.
Yep.
It's over, buddy.
I'm with you. Fact or fiction? Wilkie, the Chiefs will win the AFC for the 5th time in 6 years.
Fiction. Ravens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big call.
Yes.
See?
No explanation needed. They're the
I'm
best
not,
team in
I'm
football
not
right
doing
now.
this again. Fact. Home games, home games, home games. The rest of the way. No chance I'm going to pick against them.
Facts. I won't pick against the Kansas City Chiefs until Mahomes and Reed are gone. I'll just assume that they always win. They're 15-1.
Yeah.
They don't lose.
It's crazy. You're out of your mind. T, fact or fiction? Injuries will be too much for the Lions to overcome.
Depends on what the goal is. If the goal is winning a Super Bowl, then absolutely, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, same fact. I think it's. I'm not a huge believer in the Lions at this point. I think it's like unraveling in front of our eyes. So.
Yeah, fact. I think it's too much. I think this speaks to what Dan Campbell said after they lost last year, where he was pretty emotional and he was like, "This may have been our only chance." And I'm not going to say this was the Lions' only chance, but it requires a lot of good fortune to go on a Super Bowl run, and the Lions have not had a lot of it recently. I don't think they can do it now.
Well, as opposed to historically when they've had a lot of good fortune. The Detroit Lions. Zach, fact or fiction? And we kind of touched on this earlier, but the Super Bowl winner will be a top 2 seed. So we're looking at the Chiefs and Bills, or the Lions or Vikings and the Eagles.
Yeah, fact again. Like I said, it's just the Chiefs. It'll always be the Chiefs. It's just the Chiefs. They know how to win, and that sounds like a cop out to say they know how to win, but they just literally do. So,
Facts. Wilkie?
Fiction. Ravens.
I really like the Eagles too, so I'll have to say fact.
Yeah. It's going to be the Chiefs. We all know. And last one. All the head coaches of playoff teams will keep their jobs. T, fact or fiction?
I would definitely say fact. Nobody really, unless, is there really anyone out there? Somebody give me a team that you're thinking about.
I'm saying, fiction is. Which one is somebody will be fired?
Fiction.
Fiction, yeah, fiction. I think the Eagles lose their first playoff game and Nick Sirianni gets canned. I think that's going to happen.
He's just had such a good year. Sirianni's settled it down in the second half, and
he's a clown. Like, the guy is a clown. Like,
he turned it around pretty good.
Clown tendencies.
To his
he
credit.
has clown tendencies for sure. That's maybe a good way to put it.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have a talk with the graphics team about putting Jim Harbaugh on the graphic. By the way, Jim Harbaugh, safest job in the world. Come on.
It's true.
I'm going to say fiction because there are enough. I'm not making any bold calls here, but there are enough options, I think, that there could be a coaching change. Number one, I think Andy Reid could retire at any point, so that could happen.
Oh,
wow.
Number two, I agree with you. If the Eagles lose at home to the number 7 seed, I think Sirianni's probably gone. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but that could
They're
happen.
playing a good team though. They lose to the Packers. I don't think
At
that's
home? I think that could happen.
Yep.
And then number 3, if the Bucks lose, I think that they will consider.
brother.
No, I'm not saying Todd Bowles should lose his job. That's not the way that should work.
Right.
But Liam Cohen is going to be like a top 3 head coaching candidate this offseason.
Yeah.
For the sake of the future of the franchise, I could see them, pushing Todd Bowles out and saying, we're going to keep Liam Cohen. We're not going to replace an offensive coordinator for the
Third time
in a row. I think it's possible. So
Somebody
for that
needs the
reason, I'm
guts
going
to
to say
do it.
fiction.
Somebody this was my Ben Johnson take. Somebody needs the guts to do it. Liam Cohen, great coach.
Todd Bowles needs more respect. More respect. I know he makes some boneheaded in-game decisions, but the way that this roster has turned over before Brady,
I agree.
to
I agree.
Brady, and after Brady
is
is
true.
so impressive.
But also, his background
So
is defense,
impressive.
and that defense
the
has been
offense-
horrific this year.
but that defense doesn't have talent.
The offense has been consistent too, even through the
Right,
different
and he's-
coordinators, like which is like a good sign
Yeah,
for Todd
testament
Bowles.
to
You
him.
know,
I think it is.
I agree. I think Todd Bowles deserves more respect, but I would not be surprised if they say, look, we're not losing Liam Cohen because we know how good he is, and we're just going to make him the head coach if they lose early.
Should have gone for 2 against the Chiefs on Monday night, but I'm not bitter. Gentlemen, let's stay on the topic of head coaches for a second because this coming Monday is Black Monday. The first day after the conclusion of the regular season, where those coaches that are on the bubble are traditionally handed their walking papers. We've spent a good chunk of time in the last few weeks going over the coaches that could or should lose their jobs, the Doug Petersons of the world, what have you. I want to look at Black Monday through a different lens. Who's a coach on the hot seat that you think should keep his job? T, let's start with you.
Yeah, this one was tough, but I do think Gerard Mayo deserves another season. I don't think you can look at this Patriots team and say that the roster is capable of doing much more than what they have done this season. I mean, that defensive line is completely decimated after some of the trades they made early in the year. I challenge you to name more than 3 defensive players, not name Christian Gonzalez on that Patriots defense. The offensive line is in really rough shape. I know there are some things when it comes to his handling of the media and mostly the media, I would say the things that people have really had trouble with in terms of the way he's spoken about the team or his assistant coaches. But I do think that letting him go after year one, when you've been sitting on this guy for what he assumes has been multiple years as the man in waiting, I don't think you're in a position where he should be losing his job because I can't think you were expecting much more than what took place this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be unfair to move on from Mayo at this point. That being said, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. For only reason being, if they see this as their only chance to get Vrabel, who has ties to the organization, I could see it happening. Vrabel is going to be a top 2 head coaching candidate this offseason.
They
It's
should
an
have hired
obvious
Vrabel in the first place.
It's an obvious fit with the Patriots, but yeah, I agree. It's not Gerard Mayo's fault this hasn't gone well, so I don't think we can judge him on this, but I don't think we can rule out a change just because Vrabel is available.
Zachy, who's a coach on the hot seat that you think should keep his job?
I think Brian Daboll should keep his job. I think Brian Daboll is an excellent, excellent coach. He might be one of those guys that's maybe a little bit better of a coordinator than he is a head coach, but there's also not that many guys that are great head coaches anyway. And if you watch enough Giants games, you'll see that like there's times where he draws up beautiful plays or like cheat code plays. There's very few coordinators and play callers who draw up these cheat code plays that are guaranteed touchdown, guaranteed yards, and the Giants just can't execute them properly. And Daboll is just on the sidelines like, I don't know what to do. I gave you a complete free shot. And then he has like Drew Lock having like the best game of his career, throwing for 1,000,000 yards and 1,000,000 touchdowns and scoring 30 whatever points. It's like Brian Daboll is a really good coach, and the Giants are on the precipice of like becoming like the Jets if they keep going down this road of just like firing coaches, turning over the front office. It's like the best teams all have consistency. So just be the Giants, be boring, be traditional, keep your coach, give him a new quarterback, see what he can do with one more run, keep Daboll.
My thought, I do think that Daboll would be one of the most attractive players if he became or coach once he became available. My biggest concern is the job he's done in hiring assistants, because I do think that this defense should have been a lot better. Yeah. They invested quite a bit in the defensive line in the offseason. The offensive line's in a pretty good place. The defense should have been way, way better than they were this year. So there is some concern in being a head coach and those other responsibilities that you have when it comes to managing your staff and the rest of the roster, not just the offensive side of the ball.
Absolutely.
Wilkie, who's a coach on the hot seat that you think should keep his job?
I never thought I'd be saying this, but I think it's Mike McCarthy. And this
Really?
is this
Wow.
is a little bit of a different situation because his contract is up at the end of the year. Yeah. So if the Cowboys decide to go in a different direction, it wouldn't technically be a firing, but I think we'd all look at it that way if that's the decision that's made. Look, I was just like everyone else coming into this year. I thought that this was going to be it for McCarthy, barring a Super Bowl run. And then when things started to go off the rails early in the season and they lost Dak, I was already looking ahead to the offseason trying to figure out who they might hire. But after the way they've played down the stretch, wins in 4 of 5 games prior to last week's loss, I've kind of done a 180 on this situation. I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry Jones has as well. Remember, Jerry Jones was the guy who was patient with Jason Garrett for 9 seasons, despite only making 3 playoff appearances. Mike McCarthy has put together 3 straight 12-5 seasons coming into this year. I know the playoff success has not been there, but I don't know. Like, we're all looking for the Cowboys to go out and sign this big-name head coach, a superstar, a Ben Johnson type. That has never been the way Jerry Jones has done business. He does not spend money in that way. So
and Jerry Jones wants a puppet. Like, that's all that he wants out of his head coach, a guy that he can.
Which is why Jason Garrett lasted as long as he did, I think.
Yeah, and I kind of think that Mike McCarthy is the perfect like middle ground of like guy who does not want full control, but also is kind of a pretty good football coach. Yeah, I would not be surprised. I think that his regular season success, the postseason success, has obviously not been there so far, but the regular season success combined with the way the team has continued to fight in a lost season has probably earned him an extension. So I did not think I would ever be a McCarthy supporter, but here I am.
I guess I'll use that as a springboard to take accountability for something I was wrong about, because I didn't when we spoke earlier. I initially predicted that the Cowboys would win the NFC and lose to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, so I was wrong about that. I was as wrong as anyone can be about that. And gentlemen, there's only one thing left to do. You know what time it is. It's trivia time. Okay, so there's no Zach on the scoreboard, so you're going to be playing on Boone's behalf.
Boone.
Yeah, absolutely. You're the new Boone.
I'll channel him like in my mind. Like I'll try and have a.
Yeah, you talked fantasy. You brought up your fantasy team. So
exactly. You're doing a darn fine impression. And look, you can get him his inaugural victory in the documentation era. So if you gentlemen are ready, here we go. Joe Burrow has a chance this weekend to become the 10th quarterback in NFL history to reach 5,000 passing yards in a season. Can you name the 9 quarterbacks to reach that plateau? Give it to you one more time. Joe Burrow has a chance this weekend to become the 10th quarterback in NFL history to reach 5,000 passing yards in a season. Can you name the 9 quarterbacks to reach that plateau? Zachy, as our distinguished guest, you go first.
I'm going to start off with Drew Brees.
Of course. He did it 5 times, a staggering 5 times. No other quarterback has done it more than twice. T, let's go to you.
Tom Brady.
Correct. He's done it twice.
Peyton Manning.
Correct. He did it once in 2013, amazingly. He never did it with the Colts, did it with the Broncos. Zachy, back to you.
See, that's now's where it gets tough. I feel like those 3 were the really obvious ones, and I think there's just gonna be like part of you wants to say Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think he ever was throwing it around like that. Let me say Matthew Stafford.
Correct. He did it once in 2011. Shout out Megatron. Well done. T?
So I have the easy one in my back pocket because I know it. But I just think I could probably try something else, but maybe I shouldn't try something. I should just try to advance because I don't tend to win these very often. Justin Herbert.
Correct. He did it in 2021.
Wow, Herbie.
We got a little game cooking here.
Dak Prescott?
Wow. Early exit for our man, 2-time champion,
Yikes.
Dan Wilkins.
Yikes.
Wilkie's out. 2-horse race. Zachy?
See, the weird thing about this one is passing stats are so inflated in the most recent history, but Dan Marino did have the record for most touchdown passes in a season, so I'm going to give it a shot with Dan Marino.
Correct.
Let's
1984,
go.
his
Let's
MVP
go.
season. I believe
Got
it was
to
his sophomore season in the
5,000.
NFL. Correct.
Damn.
I thought he fell just short of 5.
Yeah, I would not have thought he had to 5.
T?
Well, I was thinking the same one Zach was earlier, so I think it might be the time to just say that. I'm thinking about Ben because there were the times when the team just could not run the ball, but I just don't know if he could have gotten to 5,000. I'm going to go Aaron Rodgers.
You should have gone with your first instinct.
Ben got
Big
there.
Ben was indeed on the list,
yeah.
but that means Zach.
Let's go.
You are the champion.
Let's go.
Shout out to Zach filling in for our man Justin Boone. We're gonna mark that one down on the board. We'll put a little asterisk next to it because Boone didn't earn it. You earned it on his behalf.
Maybe Boone, maybe in return, Boone can help me win my first ever fantasy football
Absolutely.
championship next year.
There we go, Boone. There's a 1.
Let's go.
Chalk it up on the big board. That one. Oh wait, I gotta put the asterisk in. There we go. That one belongs to Zach. Well earned. Here are the guys you missed. Ben Roethlisberger, he did it in 2018.
Did Matt Ryan?
No.
No. Okay, I didn't think so.
Patrick Mahomes, I can't believe you guys didn't guess Patrick Mahomes. He did it twice.
5,000.
And ready for this one? Jameis Winston.
Oh,
Right.
2019,
Yes.
Jameis Winston, Jabu wins. Gentlemen, heck of a job. That'll do it for today's episode of No Timeouts. Once again, thanks so much for checking us out. And also, if you want to consume the show in podcast-only form, you can now do that on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe over there. That's Zak McDonald. That's Tyler MacKillop. That's Dan Wilkins. My name is Jonah Birenbaum. Happy New Year. We'll see you next time.